Howdy. I'm leaving tomorrow on a 2-day trip to my favorite lake, Lake Louise. I'm gonna do some hiking and Nordic walking, take some pictures, but today is Friday, June 2nd, and we're talking about the business of a freight agent. And I compared these before, freight agent versus freight broker. And I've been doing it since October 22. And of course, there's many aspects of the freight agent setup that are very beneficial. Like the ease of entry. You don't need any licenses. Usually the company you hook up for gives you free training, and they provide the back office support, legal support in case somebody is sued. So normally, like, it's not you if there's some kind of a legal action, you're not under a danger of being sued, right? But they do offer like legal protection, right? And again, customer service to deal with bad clients. And most importantly, you as an agent, you get the software like TMS, transportation management software, which is expensive. You get it for free, and you get access to load boards, which are also not exactly cheap, especially here in Canada. So I'm in Calgary, Alberta, and our Canadian load board is pretty expensive. But there's one aspect. So as a freight broker, you carry all the costs, right? There's no training unless you you have to pay to take a training course. You have to apply for a license in US. In Canada, you don't need a license as a freight broker, but in US you have to apply for a license. You need to get insurance bond, right? And you have to pay for your own software, load board access. And the worst thing about being independent as a freight broker is that there's no protection, right? There's no legal protection. Your butt is exposed, so to speak, to all lawsuits. You don't have an umbrella of a bigger company above you. But I mentioned all this before, and sorry, I just wanted to kind of like polish these off to remind you guys again. So freight agent versus freight broker, right? But there's one aspect of being a freight agent that makes it really hard to make money. And the problem is that, as you might know, for all these benefits that you get from your logistics company that you are associated with as an agent, they're not doing it for free, right? They're gonna take a percentage of the commission that you charge the shipper, right? And like typical, let's say 40%, like is the agent's share, right? So let's say if you're doing a load where the commission is $500, right, you're gonna make as an agent $200, right? So the company keeps $300, but that's a small number, and so it's okay. But when you're doing some high value loads where rates are above $10,000 or something like that, it becomes very difficult to compete with other brokers, like with independent brokers, right? Because let's say you get a quote request and the guy is asking you for a quote on this some expensive load, let's say, some expensive machine like a dozer or excavator, like something that I've been trying to focus on, machinery and equipment. So if you're independent and you know that this guy emails like 20 brokers, like he's not just emailing you, because you can tell by the email address that it does not show your email address. Basically, he has a mailing list like the shipper or customer, right? Some like equipment dealer, right? So he's not sending it just to one broker. He doesn't care who he works with most of the time. He just sends this quote request to a number of people that he has on his computer, like a mailing list, right? And so let's say you want to make $350, right? As an agent, like you feel the complexity of the load, blah, blah, blah. So the distance. So you want to make I want to make $350, but I only get 40%, right? So if I want to make $350, I need to make my commission $875, right? And so again, these are not huge numbers. So basically, if I was a broker and I wanted to make $350 on this load, right, I would just quote the shipper this extra $350, right? Whereas me as an agent, I have to use the commission of $875. Okay, and so as an agent, my quote might be higher than that of a broker, right? Because the broker doesn't care. Let's say he has been doing lots of loads this week, so he knows this particular guy is cheap, so he just uses that, like let's say 350 in this case, right? Whereas for me it's 875, and that's not everything. That's not all, because most logistics companies, they have a minimum, right? So they use a percentage of a rate. So the higher your rate is, they want minimum, like there's a minimum amount, right? So if they don't get that minimum amount, they take the balance from the agent's commission. And so that makes it very difficult to compete with brokers on high rate loads. Like the higher the rate, the worse it is, because the logistics company has a minimum commission they want to make. Okay. Whereas as a broker, you don't have this, right? You can, some, like a buddy calls you, hey, can you help me out? I don't have much money for this move, and you say, okay, how about, I don't know, $100? So you just slap $100 on like the trucker says, hey, I'll do it for, $1,000. So you quote, $1,100 to your buddy, right? Just because he gives you lots of work, and maybe it's a LTL load, right? So you don't want a lot of money. But when you're an agent, you cannot do that, because there's a minimum commission that is set by your logistics company. And if you only charge the customer or the shipper $100, like in this case, like I said, the typical 40% to the agent, you only make $60, right? And I remember when I was a trucker and I dealt with agents, like a Landstar, right? They're not brokers, they're agents. And I remember I couldn't believe it that people were saying, hey, I'm only making $150 on this. I said, can you please stop with this BS? Like, how is it possible that the load, let's say, was some, expensive load, $20,000 US. And we were talking about the rate, he was trying to bring it down. And I remember one guy was telling me, well, I only make $150 on this. But that's when I realized that they're actually salespeople, right? Like agents, they only get a small, let's say 40, even 30% of the commission, right? Just kind of like in real estate. I always compare freight brokerage with real estate, where the total commission, let's say 6 or 7%, depending on the jurisdiction, but that one is usually split between the broker acting on behalf of the seller and broker acting on behalf of the buyer, right? And let's say that 3% was, I don't know, $5,000, right, if they're selling a house. But the agent will only, the real estate agent will only see, I don't know, 30, 40, 50% of that, right? The rest goes to the broker he works for. And so the same deal here. And that's why one thing I realized is, after I've been sending out, when people ask me for quote requests, I cannot get through because I have to charge them more money than a broker, right? And so that's one big disadvantage of freight agent versus a broker. So despite all the positive things, like free training, ease of access, back office support, legal protection, right? The setup, especially when they have a minimum commission, which tied to the rate. So the higher the rate, the more money they want, the logistics company, right? So it makes it very difficult for an agent to compete with other players in the logistics marketplace. So I thought I would mention that. That's something I did not realize back in October of 22 when I started this. So it's not easy. It's not easy being an agent. Thanks for watching.